guess I'll just wait here while you make your tea.
Yes, I heard you.
I
guess I'll just wait here.
Yeah, I got nothing better to do. Hello, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I am Michael Gray.
And I'm Erin Green.
How are you, Erin?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Just enjoying some cooler mornings, although we don't have snow like our friends in Colorado.
Yeah, so Erin was just telling me she's up in Boise, and it was what this morning?
It was 39 when I looked at my weather app.
39.
It's chilly. I mean, getting to the point where I'm starting to get a little concerned about my garden if it gets much cooler.
Right. Yeah. You'll have to cover it or something.
Mm-hmm.
What's the high supposed to be today?
Well, today it's supposed to get 77, so really nice. But yeah, quite a swing. Yesterday, so we had a really hot weekend. It was like 100 on Friday, Saturday. Upper 90s Sunday. And then we had this huge storm that blew in Monday. And so yesterday the high was only I think it was upper 60s. So we had this huge cold front that came through, which kind of happened all over the West, and why Colorado got snow and our friends in Wyoming got snow, and, some of the upper elevations. I know it's only September. I'm certainly not ready for those yet, but
it's a little early.
Yeah, not totally unheard of for, kind of that shoulder season that we start to notice in the mountains and in the West. And so, yeah, I'm kind of waiting to go out and explore the trails a little later this afternoon when it's warmer.
Well, that's the funny thing about that area up there, especially like that Treasure Valley. It's like, it just likes to throw in random seasons here and there.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I can't tell you how many times it snowed in May. You're like a month into spring, and all of a sudden it's like, how about snow for a day?
Yeah.
What?
Hey, guys, you thought you were done with your puffy jackets? Watch this.
Or it'll be like, the end of June, first part of July, and it's like, hey, the highs are going to be 68 this week. It's like,
right.
Wait, what's going on?
I know. Well, the upside of that is that I do enjoy a nice fire, like a good fire out front, some s'mores, a warm drink. I made some tea this morning for the first time in months, and climbing into a down comforter to I sleep better when it's cool out. Which, ironically, I wasn't thinking about this, but our topic today is talking about sleep. So, yeah, maybe we'll put y'all to sleep. Shh.
That's the hope of any good podcast, right? Put them right to sleep.
There are podcasts out there and we can talk about this, that tell bedtime stories. And one of them actually proclaims that our stories get more and more boring as they go on, so that you will gradually drift off to sleep. And we'll kind of talk about some of the stages the brain goes through when you're going to sleep and those different things. But yeah, it was.
Can you imagine being like a writer and getting hired for this job, and they're like, no, make it worse. No, don't do a good job, especially the further you go on, care less.
This is a tangent. This is a total tangent, but it just reminded me of the movie Team America World Police. Have you seen it?
America. Okay. Yeah. That one?
Hell yeah. Sure. So it's one of Matt's favorite movies of all time from a pure humor perspective. And I guess I don't remember if he was watching the making of this movie or the interview with the creators. I don't remember who they were. These
from South Park.
The South Park creators.
Trey and Matt, what are their last names? Trey Parker and Matt Stone, or is it? Yeah. Trey Parker and Matt
something
Stone.
like that.
I might have
I
flipped
don't
their
know.
last names. I got to look it up.
So I guess they hired actual marionettes to like do
Mm-hmm.
the puppetry in this movie, and it was too good. And they were like, no, wait, you guys got to do this like terribly. I mean, like the puppets got to be all like just, uncoordinated and like walking
Yeah.
funny. And like they wanted the puppeteers to do this just totally inept, for the movie, so it would be more humorous and just be this parody. So
That's
your
funny.
comment about like let's hire these really good writers and then tell them to just
Do a bad
suck
job.
at it so that we can put you to sleep.
That's funny.
So,
Oh, that's a weird
but
claim
yeah,
to make. Huh.
I know. So yeah, we were talking about the weather and the cooler temps and how I
Mm-hmm.
sleep better when this time of year rolls around and it's not as hot at
Yeah.
night. So
Yeah. I mean, I think we can get it out later, but I agree. Like if it's cooler, at least in the house, like a cooler temperature in the room and then being cozy in bed, that makes
mhm.
for a good night's sleep for me. And I think most people, but yeah.
There's actually a term for this time of year when things start cooling off and we get into the winter months. And I'm trying to remember if it originated in Norway or, I mean, one of the Scandinavian countries called Hygge. And Hygge is, you have to look it up. I can't remember if it's spelled Huggge or something. Somebody will probably correct me on this. I wasn't prepared to discuss this, but I just thought about there's an actual term for the snuggling up, the coziness, the warm beverages, the, kind of nuzzling in
Mm-hmm.
to your nest, your home, your
Yeah.
couch, your bed, whatever it is, and that comfort that brings. And so these people that love winter and they just like love this stuff. They love
Mhm.
bundling up. They love staying warm inside, having a fire and being close to other humans and kind of that snuggle,
Yeah.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost kind of like maybe for me, it is nostalgic, but it's kind of like that similar feeling of like those, good, good memories about, when I was a kid and that kind of stuff. That's kind of how snuggling up like that feels to me. It
Hmm.
kind of feels a little nostalgic. It's like, this feels
Yeah.
nice.
Safe and comfortable and
Yep. Protected from the outside world. Yeah.
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 Which surprisingly actually relates to sleep as well. So
Hmm. Before we
that
dive
feeling of
in,
being,
oh,
yeah,
sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
go
Before
for
we
it.
dive in, do you
I,
want a puppy update?
of course, I
Puppy
love
update.
double puppy update
Double
because
puppy.
you've got two of them.
It's a Pubble Duppy update. Yeah. They're doing great. They're super sweet dogs. So Cooper and Scooter, our girls named them. I think I said that last week, but they're doing great. Like they're learning quickly. They're already sitting. They for the most part got their names. I think we probably need to work with them a little more individually with that because we're like Cooper, Scooter, and they're like, oh, which one?
Yeah.
Um, but they're coming when they're called. They're sleeping well through the night. Yeah, they're doing awesome. And the girls just like, I mean, it's like every free minute they have, they're in with the puppies or
Oh,
taking them out or loving on them. Yeah.
that video you posted of them running around with the puppies chasing them, I just
Mm-hmm.
was like, this is perfect. Like they have these built-in little playmates,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
all four of them do.
Yeah,
It's so
exactly.
great.
And for Sophie, she'll be 4 at the end of this month. For her, it's like they're like friends. I mean, she'll talk to them, like she'll like dance with them. She'll like read books to them.
Oh,
She was doing
cute.
magic tricks the other day for them. She'll just go in the laundry room where we're keeping them right now. We're gonna get a crate, but where we're keeping them right now, and she'll just go in there for like 30 minutes and just sit with them and talk to them, and it's
Who
really cute.
in your family is the puppy whisperer? Or do
Mm,
you have one?
I would say maybe me, but I think just because I think I've done more of the direct like training with them, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so I think they're maybe more used to, the way commands sound from me and that kind of stuff. But they're pretty good with, I mean, even Sophie, can get them to sit. I mean, they kind of like touch their butts and it right back up, but we
They're
haven't worked on
trying.
staying yet. But I mean, shoot, we've had them a week, and they're 3.5 months old and they're already learning stuff.
Oh,
I'm pretty pleased with it. But they're adorable.
wow.
They're so freaking cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're
It
great.
sure helps that they're that cute if they, get into mischief or
It
wake you up
does.
at 3 a.m. or
Hmm.
whatever,
It does.
right?
Yeah, I know. I get out of bed in the middle of the night to take them out to pee, and I'm like, oh, just like this. Then I open the door, and they're just like, it's like, hey,
Hi.
boys, come
Hi.
on, let's go. I don't care pretty quickly because they're so freaking cute. Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Are they gonna be allowed to sleep on beds with humans?
No, I don't think so. Um, Probably not. But I think I was reading. So one of my friends, his girlfriend, trains dogs for a living, and they have this. He sent me a bunch of stuff. I was like, hey, do you have any information that will help me out? And I like this idea that they have of like on the furniture, but invite only. So you can train them
Mm,
to like, you can be on the couch with me, but only if you're invited, only if you're calm and if you're invited. It's not somewhere where you just lay whenever you want. I was like, I like that idea because then we can have like, a blanket out for them. We don't come home and they're just like, have, scratched up the couches with their claws or, whatever. It's like, I like that idea. So I need to
yeah.
read more about how to do that. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good point. You can, put some boundaries up around
Hmm.
inviting the animals and the pets into certain parts of your home or allowing them to do certain things.
Yeah.
Although we just discovered that our cat likes to get on the kitchen counters at night to look out the windows, and he is not allowed on the counter like
Mm.
whatsoever. And he knows
That's
it
what you
too. He
thought.
Oh yeah, little monster runs the castle. We're just the servant humans. But
Sounds like a
we
cat.
discovered, yeah, we saw some paw prints in the windowsill above the sink, and we were like, "Oh, you little shh."
Hmm. Little
So
monster.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. And speaking of, pets in bed, since we'll be talking about sleep, I'm very protective of my sleep. I
Hmm.
have been ever since I was training professionally and racing
Hmm.
professionally, and I still am very protective about like my bedtime and the amount of sleep I get, and how the bedroom is kept as that like you know sanctuary of
Right.
sleep.
Right.
And consequently, when we got our cat Rally 5 years ago, and he was little kitten, I was like, nope, he's not sleeping with us. He's not coming in the bedroom. I don't want him waking me up. And cats are nocturnal, and so they run around and create all this noise and chaos.
Right.
Well, it stood for a while, and we trained him that he goes and sleeps in the living room, and he doesn't need to be in bed
Hmm.
with us, to go to sleep. But what happens the first race that I do out of town and I'm gone for any extended period of time?
Matt.
I know. Dad lets the kitty in to sleep. Well, he wanted to sleep with me, and he makes excuses, and it is really cute. There are times when he'll come and Rally, our cat, will come and lay with us and just like
Yeah.
snuggle in, especially when it starts to get colder out. But man, I'm very much of the mindset that, well, he can lay here for a little while, but he's going to get disturbed and put out in the living room, and he'll survive just fine.
You got to
Am
go.
I cold? Am I cold-hearted saying that?
No, no. The last dog I had him before Kathleen and I even met. I used to let him sleep on the bed, but it was just him and I. And I loved snuggling with him and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, but there's hair on my bed all the time, and it's just kind of,
Well, and
yeah.
I have a lot of friends who have pets, dogs, cats, whatever,
Hmm.
and they will have everybody in the bed, all the animals and two humans, and I'm just like, and sometimes a
Yeah.
kid, if if their kid wakes up and comes into bed.
Yep.
And as I said before, I'm so protective of my sleep, I'm not willing to compromise that, but
Hmm.
it's like it amazes me how people will, compromise their sleep because it is a disturbance. I mean, you have
Yeah.
animals like, getting up and, whatever, their claws on the hardwood floor when they get up to
Hmm.
leave the room, or, some animals really like the paw stretch. And so they push their
Hmm.
paws into you. And
Hmm.
anyway, yeah,
Make room. Make
I
room
know.
for me. I need a little bit more space.
Better get a big bed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we should probably dive in, huh?
Yeah.
But I would like to say that I just had a birthday and you have a birthday coming up.
You did. Happy
We're
birthday,
like
Brenna.
we're close birthday buddies, like eight
Yeah,
days away. So that's kind of fun. I guess by
I
the time this
know.
airs, both of our birthdays will be over. But yeah,
Yes. And
yeah,
they will have been great birthdays. I
they
hope you
will.
had a good one
I did. It was
with
my
your family.
40th. It was a big
It
4-0.
was.
The big 4-0. Yeah. So it's just all downhill
Wow.
from here.
Happy. I know. It is. You're over
All the
over
good
the
stuff's
hump.
over. Yep. Just gets worse.
Wow, the big 4-0.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
good one. It was great. Yeah. Good times. Lots of time with the girls and just snuggling and cuddling and watching movies and stuff. And it was good. Good food.
Good.
Are you doing anything for yours?
Well, I guess we are. Matt just told me that we do have plans on Sunday, which is the day of my birthday, and
The 13th,
I
right?
don't the 13th, yeah.
Yeah.
And our anniversary, our 10th anniversary is actually on Friday. And when we
Oh, wow.
got married and we chose the wedding date, I was not super thrilled about it because I just was like, come on now, now
Yeah.
my birthday doesn't
Getting
have
a
a
little
special
close to my
time,
stuff.
right?
Quit hoarding in there, buddy.
I like the birthday. It's a good placement because we don't have any
Right.
holidays in September other than
Mm-hmm.
Labor Day. And so it
Right.
was kind of like, it didn't interfere with anything. I do enjoy having the anniversary birthday combination for,
Mm-hmm.
we'll take trips and do special things. But at the
Sure.
same time, it's kind of, you know,
Yeah.
that the birthday is a little bit of a shadow
Yeah.
in some ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we do have plans. I don't know what they are. So,
Cool.
but I like surprises.
Gonna get a burger at the drive-thru.
Maybe. We'll probably get
Maybe a
takeout because
milkshake.
that's so yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do something. I'm sure it will involve riding bikes in some form or another because
Yeah.
that's what we do. And we did a lot of that this weekend.
Nice.
So yeah, we
Cool.
did the Rebecca's Private Idaho, which if you haven't
Oh,
listened
this
to
weekend,
our
yeah.
Rebecca Rush episode, a few weeks back, we interviewed Rebecca to talk
Mhm.
about her charity, the Be Good Foundation. We talked about Rebecca's Private Idaho, which is a 3-day gravel race, or one day, depending on what you sign up for. And I decided to do the DIY format this year. So I came up with routes here around Boise, and Matt and I had a great time. Friday was the real race day for us
Mhm.
because it was a single track day, which is Matt's forte. And I struggle a little bit, but I still have some
Yeah.
good speed on the flatter stuff. So it started with this tour of the foothills on single track trails on gravel bikes, not on mountain bikes, which makes it harder.
Yeah.
And then we end with basically I don't know, it was like a 12-mile flat kind of just get the mileage in for the stage.
Mhm.
And so we got to do some head-to-head racing and some smack talking and
Nice.
it was really fun. We had
Fun.
a good time, and
Good.
yeah, and then we rode the next couple days and taking a little time off now. A little
Cool.
downtime.
Little downtime. Little time to rest and
Yeah.
recover.
Rest and
Cool.
recover. So let's talk about sleep.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's
This
go.
is often an overlooked area of health.
Right.
And like many of the topics we've talked about, I think that people come to me or maybe you and they're looking to improve their health, to
Mhm.
lose weight, of course, because that's what a lot of people want to do.
Mhm.
And I inevitably will talk about many aspects of health, including sleep.
Mhm.
And people won't expect that coming from a
Mhm.
dietitian. Like, what are why are you talking to me about sleep? But it
Right.
actually has a lot of implications in weight and metabolism and
Mhm.
recovery from injury or recovery for exercise,
Mhm.
and also just your schedule and how
And
we
yeah,
put your day together.
hormone production and
Yeah.
energy. I mean, even I think of even things just like patience and irritability. I know on days when I'm like more tired, like I'm just less patient and I'm more kind of cranky with, Kathleen and the girls, and I'm less focused at work. And even though those things don't directly impact like weight, or, our our like long-term health, like those things in the moment, they affect the family and they affect the environment. And being tired, it affects our ability to make healthier choices. Like just our kind of like our self-discipline, our grit is like lessened when we're really tired. It's easier to
Yeah.
just go for comforty stuff and stuff that feels good, it's quick, and yeah, it impacts a lot of things. It really
Yeah,
does.
so we could talk a little bit about the metabolic effects, and not to get into too many details here, but one of the primary things I see in people who are not getting adequate sleep, and I say adequate as in adequate in duration and adequate in quality, which are
Yeah,
are
quality and
two
quantity. Yeah.
separate but related things. But a lot of times there's this impact that happens in multiple ways. So one is just hormonal fluctuations.
Mm-hmm.
We don't produce hormones in the same manner and the same balance that you might if you are getting adequate sleep. So the hormonal system in your body is all connected, and so those hormones affect hunger, and they
Mm-hmm.
of course affect mood and all of these other things. So on one hand, people are changing the way they store energy, just the way their body processes
Mm-hmm.
macronutrients and calories and the way your body stores that. I believe I've seen some implications in sleep and insulin sensitivity. And so
Right.
that's related.
Right.
But then also, from a mood standpoint, like you were just saying, people will often crave comfort foods or is subconsciously seek foods that tend to provide more energy. So that would be carbohydrate and sugar foods, uh, because that's a survival mechanism that the
Mm-hmm.
human body has, where we crave carbohydrates when we are low on energy, getting tired. And so that is a very common effect of getting inadequate sleep.
Right.
And people will tell me that they'll be craving carbs or craving sugar, or I don't know why I felt like I needed to eat more of this or whatever. I don't know why I had the day I had
Mm-hmm.
with nutrition. But then when we look at it, and I'll kind of work my way backwards to, how was your sleep in the last few days? There's usually a connection there.
Right. Yeah. And I think to me, at least in my experience, it seems like there's kind of a combination for that. Like one, like the body's seeking quick energy from carbohydrate and sugar sources. Like,
Yeah.
man, we are dragons. So let's get some stuff fast. Also, like when I'm more tired, I just kind of don't want, like, you want to do less. And a
Mhm.
lot of those, quick sugary carbohydrate sources, they're easily to prepare if not like instantly ready, and it's really easy just to kind of munch on those. And then on top of that, like, I was saying, I think, self-discipline and control is kind of down. And so it's like I don't have as much of within me to go, I'm not going to do that. And so I think there's just kind of like several things that play into that. I think internally the big one is the body's like, we're tired, give us energy that we can use now. But just sort of like, emotionally and mentally, there's other things that play into that really make it easy to go to those food sources.
Right. And your brain actually is seeking the neurotransmitters, serotonin, norepinephrine,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, that it would normally be, producing and receiving throughout the day. Um, your body's kind of seeking that a little bit more. So your brain is trying to find ways to get that. And carbohydrates are a quick hit
Yeah.
of some neurotransmitters. So that's another thing that impacts
Yeah.
people. And I like your point about what takes less effort, what's instantaneous that I can
Mm-hmm.
have for energy. I also think that people tend to notice more cravings in the afternoon
Mm-hmm.
when this happens. So people
Sure.
will talk about that 3 p.m. slump, and your circadian rhythm, your natural rhythm throughout the day tends to be on an 8-hour cycle. So, like 8 hours past the time of waking up is typically around the time when you're going to naturally start feeling that kind of slump in
Mm-hmm.
energy, and that it's actually the ideal time for a nap. And we can talk about napping today too. But a lot of times people will report that if you think about waking up at 6 a.m., maybe around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the
Mm-hmm.
afternoon is that natural slump. And it's just your body's natural hormonal rhythms. And that's when people tend to tell me, at least, like, oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
craving the carbs or I'm craving that energy. So from a diet standpoint or nutrition standpoint, you could definitely plan around that time
Mm-hmm.
and be prepared with a nutritious snack. It's
Mm-hmm.
fine to have carbs in that snack, of course. It's fine to even have a little sugar in that snack, of course. It's just being prepared for it so that there's not this just, kind of impulsive grab on
Right.
whatever.
Right. Well, yeah. And especially if, you are sort of like historically there's a pattern of you kind of falling into that slump in the afternoon, it's, yeah, you can kind of plan for that stuff. Um, I, like you said, I do think that is a really great time if you're able to get a quick little snooze in, like 10, 15, 20 minutes. Because I don't nap often. I'm always glad when I do, and I always think, why don't I do this more often? Because this was just what, oh, maybe last week, I think it was. I just got like a 10-minute nap. It was quick, but I just woke up and I just felt like everything was kind of like a reset, like knock some cobwebs out. I had better clarity. I felt a little less grumpy. And I was like, all right, I can do the rest of the day now. It's a really good time for that if you're able.
Yeah, and napping is, I would say, kind of a contentious topic, because some people are in the camp that if you feel the need to have a nap, you're not getting enough sleep at
Mhm.
night. Mm, I would say, from my experience and reading, and of course I'm not a sleep expert, but I would say that there's probably a little nuance there. Sure, if
Absolutely.
you are always feeling like you literally can't keep your eyes open mid-afternoon, you
Hmm.
probably need to reassess how your sleep quality and quantity is adding up at night.
Hmm.
At the same time, if you do feel, and it's so funny because Matt is like the biggest proponent of naps. If
Hmm.
you feel that, like that kind of slump in energy, and you have the opportunity to take a
Hmm.
nap, do it.
Hmm.
Take advantage of that moment. And most of the research I have seen says 20 minutes is kind of that magical time for
Yeah.
a lay down. And something I was doing a lot when I was training is I had a 15-minute break in my afternoon that I would crawl under my desk because it was dark.
Hmm.
And I had a little exercise mat I would lay on. I had a little neck pillow. I had an eye shade. Like, I literally would just cave up under my desk
Hmm.
and I would put earphones in with a nice little, like, relaxation, white noise, whatever.
Hmm.
And I would set my alarm for
Yeah.
12 minutes, and I would just lay under my desk with my eyes closed. Maybe I would drift off, maybe
Hmm.
I wouldn't, but
Hmm.
just having that reset time
Hmm.
of closing my eyes, very little stimulation. I would
Yeah.
put a note on my door, do not disturb. It was my break time. Like, I was
Yeah.
very protective of this time. And
Yeah.
I needed it, because
Hmm.
working and training at that level,
Sure.
there were some days I literally couldn't make it through the day without just like my brain going, you know, into left
Yeah.
field.
I can
And
imagine.
I found that when I really started putting a napping practice into play for those high volume, high intensity training blocks that I would do for
Hmm.
Ironman, there were times when I would lay down and I would have basically quiet time like you would have in kindergarten,
Hmm.
same kind of thing that I just described, where I'd lay down and just close the eyes, dark room, white noise, and just lay there.
Yeah.
And even if I couldn't go to sleep per se, that just time to let my body just be, and almost like try some mindfulness practice and meditation, would actually help me feel much more refreshed, and I would
Hmm.
be far more alert through the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So napping doesn't always have to be falling asleep either.
Right. I would 100% agree. So I feel like I've had that happen many times where it's like, okay, I'm just going to lay down for 20 minutes and I just close my eyes and I lay there and I don't ever really go to sleep, but still that alarm goes off. And there's been many times, probably majority of the time I've been like, I felt better though. I didn't sleep, but I just kind of shut everything down and let the system reset a bit, and it really can do a lot. And I think, going back to your point about how some people say if you're needing a nap, in the afternoon you didn't get enough sleep, like maybe true. I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's probably black and white, only one or the other. But I do think there's a lot of times there are situations where, you can do everything you want to try and make your night's sleep the best it can be, but some of that stuff's out of your control. I mean, if you have like, new puppies, getting up at 4 a.m. to let them out, or if you have
Right.
kids, or if you have a neighbor who, is sometimes loud in the middle of the night, or a spouse that comes home from, a work shift at 2 a.m. or, you know what I mean? Sometimes there are things that disrupt our sleep. And if we can take advantage of a little 10 to 15, 20-minute window there to kind of, reset, feel better, and give ourselves kind of the rest we need to make sure that the rest of the day is successful. Yeah, absolutely do it.
Yeah. So have you heard the term sleep hygiene?
Yes,
Are you
I
familiar with
have.
that?
I am.
What are some things that you practice with sleep hygiene? What's your
So,
understanding of that?
so that was like a test.
Dun dun dun. I'm grading you, by the
So
way.
Michael,
Got my
have you heard of sleep hygiene? Why don't you do a
I
little
can go
synopsis
first.
for everybody?
I can
No,
talk
I can
about
go.
it first
That's all right.
because you really just listed we've already kind of talked
Yeah,
about several of the
yeah. For
ideas
me,
here.
my understanding of sleep hygiene is just is setting things in place to maximize um, quantity and quality of sleep. And those things for me are like um, bedtime and a bedtime routine. And we can talk about that. I like bedtime routines. That's something I've helped a lot of clients develop. Um, but then things like, making sure the room is dark, that you're comfortable in what you're sleeping in, that the room is cool. That I like white noise a whole lot, that just kind of blocks out other sounds from around. Things like that. Just trying to minimize any kind of stimulation um, before you go to sleep and during your sleep so that you can get the best sleep you can, whatever that night holds. If it's a solid interrupted 8 hours, great. If it's, you know, 3 blocks of 2 hours
Yeah.
because kids are sick or whatever, like great, at least get what you can for what you're going to get.
I think it
Did I
goes back
pass?
to oh yeah,
Okay.
you passed.
What'd I get?
Good job.
Did I get like an A minus or
I'd say A.
A?
Solid A. Solid
Really?
A.
Okay. Like
Yeah,
a
sure.
94%?
Take it. I didn't do the math, but I
Oh, okay.
you passed. You got an
Okay.
A. You're an A student. Good job.
Feels pretty general, but that's all right.
I
It's
think
pass fail.
one of the overarching concepts that you're describing is sort of controlling as
Mhm.
much as you can about your
Mhm.
sleep environment and your sleep practice. We've talked about habits and routines in past episodes. So if you, and I think we touched on bedtime routines and
Mhm.
morning routines and stuff. So if you want to go back and kind of get a refresher on those, but it really, as you put into practice routines, it's constantly kind of setting your brain and your body up for this is what's coming next. This is what's coming next.
Right.
This is what I do. So when you are very protective about that sleep environment and that routine, and I'll even tell Matt sometimes, like we used to have this issue in our old house where the bedroom had these windowed French doors that went right into
Mhm.
the living room, and I would be, quote, winding down. That's what I called it. Every night I'd like turn on
Mhm.
dim lights, brush my teeth, wash my face, turn
Mhm.
down the covers, whatever. I'd kind of get into my bedtime routine. And he'd come in and just flip on lights and whatever and be like clanging in the kitchen. And I was like, hold the phone, buddy. I am winding down. It's my winding down time.
Right.
Shh, you know, turn down those lights. It was so funny how I had conditioned myself that
Yeah.
if I had this routine that my body and my brain was expecting, like, okay, there's dim lighting, it's quiet, we don't make a lot of noise, we're going through these steps, you're preparing yourself for sleeping. And if
Mhm.
something disrupts that and throws a wrench in it, whether it's, you've got kids, you've got puppies, you've got a spouse or somebody being disruptive, that can really disrupt the sleep. Sometimes you have control over it and sometimes you don't. So,
Right. Well, and I think like this concept I think goes in, but it can be applied to like, your nutrition, exercise, that kind of stuff too. But it's the idea of you can't control everything, right? Like there's always factors that come into play that are out of our control. But if we set ourselves up for success, then if we have a disrupted night's sleep, well, we're going to get better quality for the lack of sleep. Like, if we get less sleep than we normally do, it's probably going to be a higher quality. So we're still coming out ahead, but it's easy for us to be like, wow, I just did all these things and I really felt like I set myself up for sex, but then it's this and this happened. And so it was kind of ruined. It's like, okay, but if we didn't do all that stuff and set that stuff in place, it would have been way worse. Like you're still ahead of the game, even if you got crappy sleep and it was super interrupted. It's probably going to be higher quality when you were asleep, and the day's going to be a bit easier than if you hadn't done that stuff. And I think sometimes it's easy to throw out those preparations like, oh, well, it didn't do anything.
Right. It didn't work.
Yeah, things don't go like we had planned. I just don't think that's the case at all. I think it minimized the effects of what didn't go as planned.
Yeah. So we hear all these things about sleep hygiene and the things you and I just discussed on setting up that bedtime routine and, avoid blue lights before bed, avoid really heavy conversations or stressful occurrences as much as you can before bedtime. Um, Turn down the lights, keep your bedroom cool and dark, and have some white noise, like all of these things. I listened to a really great podcast that presented a different aspect than sleep hygiene, and I sent it to you. Did you have a chance to listen to?
Yep. So
the researcher was Nick Wignall.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. The art of
Attention,
Art
I
of
think
Attention.
is what it was called. The podcast
episode
name.
4,
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yes,
Very
I
good.
haven't finished it. So it was like 40 minutes long. I got through 32 of it or something. So I haven't finished it yet. But very different than I thought it was going to be, and really interesting concepts. We can talk about them, but I wasn't expecting that. But when we went through them, it was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
So I've done so much reading and self-study and talking with experts and asking the questions whenever there's somebody, in my wellness midst who's a sleep expert. And I've heard so much about sleep hygiene and all these things. Nick Wignall and some other researchers that are actually looking at cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is really fascinating. And I stumbled upon it like on Twitter or something. And I just was like, whoa, this is a new concept to me, but it totally makes sense. One of the things he talks about is the different shift in gears of states of attention that your brain goes through. So we have sleep on one end of the spectrum, and then we have arousal on the other end of the spectrum. So arousal is like when, the fire alarm goes off, or, if the gun goes off for a race or something, and there's like something immediate that you have to attend to, you're giving a presentation at work. Those are arousal states.
Elevated. Yeah. Like super aware. Yeah.
Yeah. We're awake. We're awake.
Yeah.
So there's sleep and arousal. And then in between those, one step above sleep would be relaxation. And then one step above that would be attention, I think, or alertness.
Alertness.
Was it alertness?
Alert. Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got those 4 stages, right? We've got sleep, relaxation, alertness, and arousal. What he explains is you can't go directly from, say, arousal state directly into sleep state. You have to go through those other states first. So when I think of this and how this might apply to me, that comes down to, if I'm doing something that requires a lot of my attention or focus, or if I'm under pressure, like maybe I have a deadline for a presentation. And so I'm just like, I'm reading like heavy literature or, thinking through this presentation and some of these or a race the night before a race, I never slept well because I was just kind of in that arousal state the whole time, like just waiting for the gun to go off. Right. But what he talks about in trying to get through these different states and then down to sleep, it's kind of like walking through a hallway where you have to pass through these different doorways to get to the next one, to get to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the concepts he talks about is intentional worrying, because worrying is a state of arousal, actually. I mean, it's kind of in between that. What did we say that? Sorry, I keep thinking attention.
Alert.
It's alert. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's kind of in between that alert state and arousal
Mm-hmm.
state is worrying,
Mm-hmm.
and can lead to anxiety, which is definitely an arousal state for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to try and dismantle that, if you set aside time to intentionally worry
Mm-hmm.
and say, this is my sole purpose for the next, whatever, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, is I'm going to sit down and just worry as hard as I can,
Mm-hmm.
really, and write it down, bullet points.
Right.
Don't go into too much detail, but just write down, like, what are these things that I am worrying about?
Mm-hmm.
Give your brain that space to intentionally worry. This
Mm-hmm.
goes into our mindfulness podcast that we just released a couple episodes back, that talks about how you set aside time to be mindful and aware and kind of, maybe meditate, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a similar concept. It's just in a way that you might not, I mean, nobody wants to spend their time worrying.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's pretty unproductive. And I think that's a lot of the reason that a lot of us we can't go to sleep, is because, I mean, all the time clients talk about, my brain was just spinning. I was thinking about this and this and this and this,
Yeah.
and I really like, I have never thought of it in the way that he said in that podcast of like intentionally worry or give yourself worry time. But I have had clients before, excuse me, have like a notepad by their bed. And if they can't go to sleep, or if they wake up in the night and they just start spinning, to write all those things down. Just what are you thinking about? And I really think there's something really valuable in that writing down piece. And I'm glad he said that, because I think a lot of times with those worries, we're just trying to like keep them at bay. And if we just try to keep, like the worries away, they're still knocking on the door constantly. But if we like open up the door and be like, you exist, I acknowledge you, let me put pen to paper that, you're a real worry, you're a real concern. I think that one that gives us a little bit of power over them, or an edge over those worries, because we've kind of acknowledged them. But also, I think there's a comfort in, okay, this is a legitimate thing, but I'm going to remember it in the morning. Like if it's something that needs my attention, because it's written down, right? Like I'm not going to, because I've had that many times where the night I'm like, oh God, tomorrow I've got to remember to, and I'm worried I'm going to forget. And so I'm spending my time trying to remind myself to remember, when if I just wrote it down, it's like, it's there. And now it doesn't need to take up any real estate in my head, because I've got it. I think that can be a really powerful tool when it comes to worry.
Yeah. And I've heard the same kinds of things, only keeping that notepad somewhere outside your bedroom. So physically, like at your desk or on the whatever kitchen counter, or wherever you might, have a neutral zone to kind of approach it later on, so that it's physically outside your bedroom. And that goes with maybe the phone. If your phone is a kind of a trigger for arousal, thinking, I've got work to do, I've got to answer that email, whatever, maybe keeping your phone outside the bedroom and getting a good old fashioned alarm clock is the solution there.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think that you make a good point of just protecting the bedroom as a place of, because I mean, we've talked about this before with like routines and, habits and that kind of stuff. The body, it feeds off of cues and signals. And if your bedroom is a place that's not only for sleep, but it's also where you're working, or where, where you watch, stuff on your phone, it's just not like this protected space for this thing. It's like the body's like, well, which one are we doing? Are we relaxing, or are we watching, some violent war movie that's going to key us all up? I don't know. Or are we going to get really bogged down in work? I don't know. What are we doing? And so I think if we can kind of protect those spaces, for this is for sleep and relaxation, and that's what this room's for, then, which I'll admit, I'm not the greatest at protecting that space. But it can go a long way for cueing your body for we're in here for a very specific reason, and the body knows what
Yeah.
that is.
And this takes practice too. It's not
Mhm.
like just, in fact, on that podcast, they used a really good analogy that I thought you would probably appreciate, where, if somebody comes to you for, fitness goals or training, you don't just put them on the treadmill for an hour and say, okay, you've got it now. It
Right.
takes
You did it
time
once.
after, yeah, yeah, I did it once. So now I'm ready,
Right.
and
Yeah.
everything's fixed. It
Mhm.
takes repetition, it takes practice, it takes probably stumbling and maybe finding some things that don't work. Um, and something else he talks about is when you're doing this intentional worry block, just bullet point it. Like, just kind of let the thoughts come and go, let the worries come and go, but really think about, like, what are these things that are getting to
Mhm.
me? Then set aside a different time on another day to address those worries and really decide if they're real worries. I mean, how many times
Right.
have you been kind of stewing about something, and then you go
Mhm.
to bed and the next morning you're like, oh, it's not it's not a
Right.
big deal anymore. Like,
Right.
you almost forget about it.
Yeah.
So if you do spend all this time picking apart your list right then, before, and
Mhm.
this is usually done in the evening, right? After work, after dinner, maybe a couple hours before bed, you might spend all this time just really ruminating on this worry that really doesn't matter.
Right.
It's just kind of getting it out of your head.
Right. And I think that that goes to show how like our perspective and perception can kind of change when we're tired versus when we're well rested. And I think, those things can often, or just any stressors can often be kind of magnified as the day goes on because I think we just are more tired. We've been through a lot during the day. Our energy is kind of, zapped, or it's certainly lower than when we started. And it's just hard to deal with that stuff. And when we look at, dealing with stressors when we're in a fatigued state, sure, they might seem pretty insurmountable. And then we go to sleep and we get a good night's rest and we wake up and it's like, oh, okay, I've got what I need to handle that. It's not that big of a deal. And I think that's at least part of it, is just that kind of fatigued versus well rested state. And it kind of changes our perception of them.
And it makes you wonder how many people are in a state of chronic
Mm-hmm.
fatigue because they don't sleep enough. It's almost become this, badge of honor that, oh, I only sleep
Mm-hmm.
4 hours a night or something like that. I don't need much sleep. But what's
Right.
really interesting, most of the research I've read and most of the experts I've listened to, I mean, across the board, first of all, sleep is the one physiological activity that you have to do. Like, your body will literally shut down and force you to sleep at some
Mm-hmm.
point.
Mm-hmm.
If you, whether you think you're sleeping or not, you might be like zombie walking around or something,
Right.
but your body will literally force yourself into that state eventually
Mm-hmm.
in order to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But then these people that are saying, like, oh, I feel fine, I only get 5 hours of sleep a night or whatever, if you, sure, they might say they feel fine and they function fine, but then if
Mm-hmm.
you actually give them adequate sleep for their body, and for some people it's 7 hours, for some people it's
Mm-hmm.
9, different ages and have different needs,
Mm-hmm.
so that's up for debate. But if you give these chronically under rested people adequate sleep, it's like they suddenly have these lights going off in their brain that they didn't even know existed, and their
Right.
cognition gets better, their reaction time
Mm-hmm.
gets better, their decision making gets better, their
Mm-hmm.
moods improve and are more stable. So we do see that even if people say, "Oh, I can get by with less sleep," you probably need more
Sure.
than you think.
Yeah. And you can, yeah. I mean, that's like, yeah, you could lose weight just eating 10 Twinkies a day. Like,
Oh
sure,
God,
that'll
that
work.
sounds horrible. Actually,
But there's a lot better ways to do it, right? There's a lot, you can do it and feel a lot better.
worked
Like,
for me, the
yeah,
Twinkie diet.
Twinkie diet. All right, we're gonna trademark that just in case. Um, so how many hours a night do you get of sleep on average, would you say?
I would say I'm usually around 8. When I was training in like really heavy training cycles, if I could get closer to 9, and there were some
Yeah.
weeks where I was like, I have to get at least a couple nights of 9 hours here.
Mhm.
But usually that 8-ish mark is pretty
Yeah.
solid for me. I can get by on 7.5. ish, a little
Okay.
bit less. If I start getting under 7, it's like
Bad news
DEFCON
bears.
5. Like I'm definitely becoming more protective of that bedtime and the sleep routine. And I'll alert the household, right? Like I'll tell Matt,
Right.
I'm going to bed early tonight. The cat is nowhere in the bedroom. Like the lights are off early. So yeah, I'm usually that 8-hour person unless I'm like in, need for more recovery. How
Yeah.
about you?
Oh, not that much. I would say, including interruptions, mm, 6.5 to 7 on average right now. Yeah, it could definitely be better,
Yeah.
especially because of the interruptions. I think since like kind of COVID, everything like it's been not as great. Um, yeah, but I think just worries and stuff there. But then I mean, you have kids that get you up and puppies now and that kind of stuff. But I would say on average, probably 6.5 to 7 would be the average.
Yeah.
But I've always, and I say this is kind of counter to what you just said, and I might be pulling the wool over my own eyes, but I've always felt okay. I can at least get through the day. If I have like 6, like that's a minimum for me, or it's like, all right, I can function and feel okay doing everything I need to do. Even if I'm going to work out or something, like, I'm a little more tired, but I can do all the things. But I get under 6, and that's where I start kind of like,
Ugh.
oh boy, this is getting
Mhm.
tough. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
one of the other really interesting points I came across, just in keeping with the theme of maybe providing some different aspects of sleep and health that
Hmm.
maybe you haven't heard before, I listened to a TED Med talk that what was the guy's name? I wrote it down here. Jeff Eliff, Iliff is his last
Mm.
name. Sorry if I butchered that last name. But he describes how, okay, we have the lymphatic system in our body, right? And the lymphatic system is to clear waste. Essentially, that's the job, is the superhighway of clearing waste in our body and processing it and getting it out of the way. The one place in our body that doesn't have a lymphatic system running through it is the brain.
Mm.
So the brain has these basically, it repurposes the blood vessels that are bringing all the nutrients, it repurposes them to flush all the waste. So it has like a
Mm.
twofer thing going on. However, that waste clearing only happens when you're sleeping.
Oh, interesting.
So the research is looking at how the implications for Alzheimer's and maybe dementia and some of the other cognitive deteriorating conditions that we see later in life and how that relates to the amount of sleep we get and the quality of sleep. So for me that was really fascinating
Yeah, that
because
is.
as you just said earlier, you were like, yeah, I can lay down for just a quick nap and I feel clearer and I can think better. And it makes sense if there is, even if just laying down with your eyes closed and just kind of
Hmm.
drifting a little bit and giving that pause is enough time for your brain to just like maybe do a little bit of that. I have no idea.
Hmm.
I'm not a neuroscientist, but it's really fascinating to hear some of these implications of sleep, especially in a society where we have this whole like it's like the tough guy thing, right? Oh,
Right.
I can get by with less sleep. Oh, I don't need to sleep. I
It's
can
like
sleep when
being
I'm dead.
busy. It's like, oh, I'm so
Yeah,
I'm too busy
I'm
for
so
that.
busy.
I wish I had time.
I'm so busy.
Yeah. You guys don't even know how busy I am.
Yeah. So that was another really interesting one for me, and um, especially just that possible connection with Alzheimer's. And your brain uses a quarter of the body's energy for processing, which to me is fascinating because you just have this little tiny mass up here. So you think that, oh, it, doesn't go through all that
Yeah.
much energy
Everything
utilization, but
starts
it's a
there.
lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah, and that makes sense. And that makes sense why like a nap, you just kind of feel like, oh, I feel like I got the cobwebs out and
Mm-hmm.
things are a little cleaned up. I also think I'm going to start calling sleeping clearing waste. Be like, I'm going to go clear my waste now.
Careful, because they might be like, light a match. Please, Dad.
I'll be right back. No, clear my waist.
Waist clearing time.
Waist clearing time, kids. Get your
Yeah.
jammies on.
So
Yeah.
I know. So some interesting things about sleep, and
Mhm.
I again, this kind of ties back into the overall health picture. When we look at these things that getting adequate sleep does for us, and how it ties into routines,
Mhm.
right? Because it ties into your breakfast time and your
Mhm.
evening meal, dinner time. Definitely ties into appetite, energy
Mhm.
levels throughout the day, hormone production, like we discussed,
Mhm.
and even prevention of some. We see a lot of correlation with sleep quality and quantity,
Mhm.
and risk of chronic diseases,
Yep.
especially cardiac
Mhm.
disease,
Diabetes.
different, yeah, diabetes,
Yeah.
um, even BMI and weight. There's
Yeah.
correlations there, and I used to work with firefighters, paramedics, dispatchers in the Treasure Valley, and I did a fair amount of reading on shift work and how shift workers
Mhm.
are at higher risk for a lot of these conditions because of the strain on the body when you
Right.
don't have that predictable rhythm of sleep.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
For
it's pretty
sure.
fascinating stuff.
Well, and I mean, you mentioned this at the beginning, but if it's not just about being well rested, it's about functioning well when you're not resting, right? It's about your body's processes working like they're supposed to, and hormones, being produced and utilized like they're supposed to. It's about, so if most of what we talk about on this podcast is kind of like exercise, nutrition related, I think, but sleep impacts those things. You know what I mean? So if you're looking at like just being healthy or losing weight, and you're going like, I don't really care about sleep that much, well, you should, because it absolutely 100% impacts those things. If you are chronically fatigued, it's going to be really hard to lose weight the way you're supposed to. If you're chronically fatigued, it's going to be really hard to exercise in a way that really benefits your body like you're supposed to. If you're chronically fatigued, it's going to be harder to stick to, or to say, make some conscious choices to avoid certain foods. And it impacts everything, and just hormonally too. I mean, our hormones drive everything. And if that production's not happening properly, it makes everything we're trying to do to be healthy or lose weight just more difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good reminders. So
Yeah.
get your sleep, you guys.
Get your waist clearing in. Clear your waist.
So, do you have anything else to add besides waist clearing, my friend?
Nope. I feel like that's most of what I do is just clearing waste.
Kind of.
It's my thing.
I think we kind of hit on most of the high points of
Yeah,
sleep,
I
and
think so. Yeah, I would recommend, if anybody's curious about like bedtime routines, to go back and listen to the I don't remember what episode it was. It was like 3 or 4 or 5, somewhere
yeah,
in there, about developing
early on.
routines. Yeah, because we do talk about that, and I think a good bedtime routine can be really beneficial
Hmm.
for kind of establishing, quality sleep.
Yep,
But yeah.
good stuff. And we'll link the podcast and the TED Talks that I referenced
Hmm.
in the notes,
Hmm.
so you can
Yeah,
look at that.
for sure.
So, do you have a meaning in the mundane to share with us?
I do. And it's not a specific moment. It's been just several little moments over the last week. And it's just watching my girls with these puppies. Um, like when they take them outside and they're just like running them, like, because if either one of them starts running, the puppies just chase them. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, I guess we're running now. So that's what we do.
Game on.
Yep. And just like running, and the girls lay on the ground. The puppies are just licking them and all over them, and they're laughing and giggling and watching Lila, who's 9, just like very diligently working with them, in terms of like, um, like getting them to sit when they're supposed to, and train them to go potty outside. It's just been really fun to just have this. I mean, getting a puppy, it's an exciting thing, but it's also something that people do all the time, but just to watch how much like joy it's bringing to my girls. And then also, I mean, just to me too. It's like going and spending 10 minutes with those puppies. It just kind of makes everything a little bit better.
Yeah.
They're just so fun and cute and
Brings
cuddly.
the
And
energy up a notch, and
yep. Yeah. So
that's
it's kind of
good.
mine. Just been, dozens of those moments over the last week. Just watching them be adorable with those cute little puppies.
I think pets definitely help with that.
Mm-hmm.
Just that kind of bringing your focus and your attention back to what's happening right here in this,
Yeah.
in this moment, immediate
Well,
space.
yeah, and I read somewhere, it's been a while, so I might screw this up a little bit. So, but it's something to
That's
this
cool.
effect.
We'll accept
It's
you.
cool. It's okay. So when when a someone has a baby, like a mother has a baby, I think it's during breastfeeding that releases oxytocin in the body,
Right.
which is like this bonding experience, and it's
It's
like
the
this,
falling in love
yeah, the
hormone.
elevation of just like, oh, this is an amazing thing.
Hmm.
And it's very well maybe the case with any animal, but it was talking specifically about dogs, that spending
Yeah.
time with dogs, it releases, probably not near to the same degree, but that oxytocin in the body. And so just spending time petting and loving those dogs, it does things chemically in the body that makes you go, oh, like the world's, a better place than I thought it was 10 minutes ago. And I'm just a
Yeah.
little bit happier.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. A
Yeah.
hug can do the same thing. A
Yeah.
hug releases oxytocin. So
Yep. Yeah.
very good.
So how about you?
Mine was this weekend. So we did our gravel race, our 3-day gravel race. And we, I of course tried to rally the troops and get people going. And
Yeah.
we got a small group on Saturday coming with us. But then for the big day, the final day, it was just me and Matt and our buddy, Troy, who's been riding with us a lot through the quarantine and through the
Mhm.
pandemic. We've had a great summer with him. And at the end of the event, so Sunday, we were wrecked. I mean, it took us almost 8 hours to do the ride it took longer than 8 hours, but 8 hours ride time. We're so tired. And I'll own it. I wanted to have people
We.
over. I know. I say we, and Matt's like, whatever. This is not my idea. I wanted to have people over for some kind of celebration and just camaraderie. I miss that
Mhm.
so much from
Mhm.
racing and just connecting with people, and that kind of celebration of we all have this common bond, of
Yeah.
the bike and this thing that we just did, and we're all kind of in it together. And so we made it happen. It was, and I say we definitely made it happen because Matt totally helped on Sunday
Yeah.
because we were completely wrecked. And we had a very small group over here. I think there were 8 of us, and we just sat out front in, outside, kept it, responsible and distanced, and had food and just hung out and talked. And it was the first social gathering of more than just a
Mhm.
couple people that Matt and
Mhm.
I have had since, well, whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, probably
March.
since January, February.
Yeah.
And it felt so normal and so
Yeah.
wonderful. I didn't realize how much I missed that
Mhm.
until we were actually, I would sit there and I just kind of look around the circle and be like, this is actually happening. Like,
Yeah.
this is really happening. Like, we're, this group of
We're
people just
doing
sitting
it.
around and
We're
talking. And
doing
I
it.
mean, we hardly talked about, pandemic politics. We talked a little bit because that's just how it comes up, but really just like normal conversation. And it was
Yeah.
just wonderful and blissful, and
Mm.
something that I totally took for granted for basically my entire life until this year.
That's
So,
great. That's awesome. Yeah, I miss stuff like that. And I'm not a real social, like, I tend to be more introverted. Like, I'm good just hanging out at home. Like, I don't need to see anybody. I am very happy not doing a lot socially on a regular basis, but even, I found this like, yeah, man, I'm missing that. I just want to go, like have a barbecue or go to the park with some friends or,
yeah,
like, yeah, just something.
do something that's kind of normal. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. That's awesome. I'm glad you had that.
Well, hopefully we'll have a little more of that. I'm
Mhm.
kind of wondering how the cooler weather is going to affect this whole outdoor gathering
Yeah.
thing, but
Yeah.
we'll see what we can do.
Be interesting to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all right. Now that you guys know everything about sleep, we'll get out of here.
Go take a nap, everyone.
Go take a nap. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing and sharing. Please keep doing all that stuff. And we'd love to hear from you. Middleish@gmail.com. Actually, I think we just got an email just a little bit ago that I was going to read before we hopped on here, and I forgot. But a story from a listener about
We'll check it out,
mindfulness.
and we'll share it on the next one.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, thank you all.
Okay, thanks you guys. Have a good day.